My boyfriend, 22 male, said he would prefer me, 19 female, as a rather than a wife. I was speaking with a friend about the situation in Afghanistan and how women are effectively kept as in that country. I started to wonder what our lives would have been like if we had grown up in that location. I inquired as to whether he would release me if I were his, and he said, "If I own you, why would I release you?" Initially, I was concerned. However, I reasoned that he could have misinterpreted the question. So I said, "If I didn't want to be with you, but I was still your and I was still me, would you let me go?" He claimed that he would not allow me to go even if I did not want to have relations with him. "If you had to pick between having me as your wife and having me as your, which would you prefer? Having me as your wife or having me as your, I told you," I said. And he seemed a little unsure, which I thought was weird, but after some thought he responded, "I obtain far more benefits from you being my, therefore I'd like you to be my." Some of the benefits he claimed were forcing me to have his children, my incapacity to leave, and my inability to be upset at him. Others included forcing me to have his children. It was something we spoke about for quite some time, and he offered a few different conditions for letting me go, such as getting reimbursed for the money that he had spent to acquire me. This caused me to inquire as to how much money he would have to spend on me in order to release me, and he responded by stating that $10,000 was an excessive sum. I expressed my worry to him, and he responded by saying that it wouldn't be unusual if it was the cultural norm. He doesn't seem to understand why I'm a bit uncomfortable with this, even when I explain it to him. What should I do in this situation? Story 2. You slept with my GF, better watch your back. I reside with my girlfriend Karen and an old grade school classmate named Jake, who works as a sales rep. We reside on the outskirts of a well-known American metropolis. I was in my late 20s when I found myself hunting for a job after the pub where I was working closed down. Jake contacts me and tells me about his new girlfriend, knowing how desperate I was for employment. Jill has acquired a motel/bar with a tiny kitchen and is looking for hired assistants. Needless to say, I jumped at the chance since Karen wasn't working, the bills were building up, and our health insurance was about to expire. I phoned Jill and made plans to see her at her new home to introduce myself. Jake made the introductions in person and had previously informed Jill that I was a hands-on dyer with hospitality experience. To clarify, my father is a mechanic who thinks that if you can hire someone to repair something, you can usually do it yourself for less money. He taught me a lot and continues to do so to this day. Jill put me to the test after a 30-minute conversation by rewiring an outlet, repairing a blocked sink, and quizzing me on liquor regulations. Needless to say, I was recruited on the spot. Initially, the focus was on making the property suitable for business. Jill expected modest repairs, paint, replacement of fixtures and furnishings. But we quickly discovered that the electrical cables were damaged and the whole property required rewiring, which caused Jill concern since it would have blown her budget. Fortunately for Jill, my dad was in between contracts and volunteered his services using leftover stock, which had already been paid for from prior tasks. But Jill would have to bear the cost of any new stuff necessary. In terms of compensation for his labor, he said that he loves a steak and drink on Friday evenings. After 3 weeks of assisting Dad, the wiring was completed, up to code, and for a fraction of the cost. Jill and I spent 1-2 months painting all 15 hotel rooms, as well as the cafe and bar, cleaning the kitchen, cooling rooms, and so on. Jake would volunteer to assist but would always leave within 20 minutes, claiming he needed to make a sell. Jill often worked late into the night. This was, after all, her dream. After hours, I take some furniture home to fix and then return it. After 6 months, and due to Dad, the company launched under budget. Jill handled the company and the kitchen, and I worked wherever I was needed. Maintenance is being performed in the kitchen and at the bar. I was paid, second in command, and could work in any capacity. For a year, everything went swimmingly. The company was profitable. Dad was on his way to grab his weekly drink and steak. Karen seemed to be content, and Jake was still working as a sales representative for a pharmaceutical business. I was feeling ill at work one day, so I checked out and went home early. With the exception of a twisting belly, Everything seemed normal as I pulled into my driveway. Jake's vehicle was there, but he lived there, so I didn't believe there was anything wrong. As is customary, I parked behind Jake, important for later. When I opened the door, I discovered Karen performing the reverse cowgirl on the sofa with Jake. Jake grabbed his trousers and raced out the back door as he saw me. Karen and I battled late into the night, and she attempted to blame me, claiming I'm never home and spend too much time with Jill. We were keeping things professional. I was her employee. I went to bed and told her she could sleep in Jake's bed since it was obviously more comfortable for her. I contacted Jill and told her about it since Jake was her boyfriend. She was unhappy because he had cheated on her, but she thought he was seeing someone else. Jill gave me a place at the hotel until I decided what to do next. The next day, I moved my personal belongings onto the truck. Jake's vehicle remained parked since I had blocked it in. I informed Karen she could keep the rental and the furnishings. I told Karen I'd be back in a few hours for my tools and would appreciate it if she wasn't there. I drove home that afternoon to put my equipment into my vehicle, and while I was reaching for something from beneath my workbench, I saw a bag I hadn't seen before. On closer investigation, I discovered also a huge number of little pills. The manner they were wrapped and concealed made me think they were definitely ecstasy, and a thorough search of the residence resulted in the discovery of 2 additional bags and almost $12,000 in cash. I put 2 and 2 together and realized Jake's pharmaceutical sales position was code for drug dealer, and Jake most likely exchanged drugs for with Karen. I was furious until I realized I had everything I needed to bring him back. The revenge is mine. The car that Jake was driving hadn't moved yet, so I went inside the house and fetched his spare keys, along with a pair of gloves from the garage. Then I placed half the money and 1 bag of drugs into his boot, thinking to myself, wait a minute, this isn't going to last long. I slid the bag into the spare tire's wheel well and slid the bag back into the wheel well. I threw the other 2 bags down the storm drain in the laneway behind my house and went back inside. Jake did, however, cost me a house full of belongings in return for the $6K in cash. This is only a thought. I sent Jake and Karen an email that stated something along the lines of I can't believe you did this, we were friends, blah blah blah. They never responded. I've left, and I hope you and your partner are doing well. In response, I filed an anonymous report with the local police and the ATF about a man who matched Jake's description, who was packing what appeared to be narcotics into the boot of a vehicle that sounded like Jake's car and who had a partial license plate number that matched Jake's car. I was able to confirm that the vehicle was Jake's. Authorities were able to track down the vehicle and the drugs in a short period of time. What I didn't realize at the time was that Karen was behind the wheel of the automobile. Following that, she was released when it was revealed that she had been driving the incorrect vehicle at the wrong time. A warrant for Jake's arrest has been issued. The icing on the cake. I later found that not only were the police after Jake, but his supplier was also on the hunt for him, since he had lost a significant amount of inventory. After 3 months, I had purchased a house and was still collaborating with Jill on projects. Karen was expecting Jake's kid, and Jake was on the run from the authorities. As a result of her unexpected departure from the district when she was 8 months pregnant, I assumed she was in contact with Jake at the time. Following a rowdy night of business and pleasure, Jill and I started dating 12 months after the incident. It has been 10 years since then. We are a married couple with 2 children, and we have just launched our 3rd business venture. Dad continues to get his monthly steak and beer meal from them. Apparently Jake and Karen ended up in Alaska, although I'm not sure where they went. I'm feeling terrible about it right now since Jake made it possible for me to date Jill and have a wonderful life after that. I hope everything is going well for him.